You read it all up when you saw it. Yeah, I will. I will bring it up in just a bit. I want to get to where I'm doing a long craft, but first I need to go get some food. BitCraft open sourcing phase 1 announced. Last year, we shared our intention to open source BitCraft's code. At the time, we focused on the why we believe open source can make the MMO genre more accessible, why BitCraft itself will benefit from transparency and collaboration, and why giving back to the open source ecosystem matters to us. If you have not read that original announcement yet, we recommend starting there. It lays out the philosophy and long-term thinking behind this decision, which has not changed. Since that post, BitCraft has entered early access, and for the past 6 months, our primary focus has been on shipping the game, stabilizing it, and supporting a growing live community. With that foundation now in place, we are ready to move forward on the next step. Phase 1 is coming next week. Phase 1 of BitCraft's open source rollout will be released next week on January 21st, 2026. It will be available and they've got a GitHub once it is made public. This is the first phase of a multi-phase plan to ultimately open source the entirety of the BitCraft's code base. We are committed to seeing this through, and phase 1 is an important and substantial step in that direction. So, okay. Within less than a week, it'll be on GitHub. That's interesting. What phase 1 includes? Phase 1 consists of the entire BitCraft server module sub-repository. This repository represents virtually all of the game's core logic. In practice, this is everything that runs inside SpacetimeDB, including both the global and region modules, which together allow BitCraft to scale its world size indefinitely. For those unfamiliar, SpacetimeDB is the back-end solution we developed to power BitCraft. Within this code, developers will be able to explore how BitCraft's world simulation works, how its systems interact, and how a large-scale sandbox MMORPG can be built in a way that is extensible and capable of scaling to tens or even hundreds of thousands of players using SpacetimeDB. While this does not include the client, it does provide a complete view into how the game actually functions at a systemic level. Okay, so it doesn't include the client, but it has all of the back-end functionality of the game. That's interesting. And then the answer, why the client is not included yet. At this stage, we're only open sourcing the server module due to a combination of licensing and technical constraints on the client side. The BitCraft words, guys. Sorry, my stutter's keeping me. The BitCraft client includes assets, shaders, and tooling that we do not currently have the rights to open source. Oh, that's interesting. So they must have gotten some of those from elsewhere that they're currently licensing. Okay. While virtually all of the art and code in the game today is our own work, there are still remnants in the project from early prototyping phases where we relied on third-party assets. Untangling, replacing, and properly sandboxing these pieces takes time and care. We want to do this correctly rather than rush out a partial or messy client release. This is not a question of willingness, but of making sure that when we do release the client, it is clean, legally sound, and useful to the community. That's good. That's not easy, removing things that you have in there as prototypes or placeholders. It's one of the reasons why the folks that are against Gen AI use in game development are like, don't use it as placeholders. Don't put it in there because something will stick in there. Something will be hard to remove. Something will be forgotten and go through. And then you're not living up to producing a product without Gen AI. So it just, but I mean, they weren't necessarily using Gen AI. I was just saying that was a similar example. You know, they're talking about how they used stuff from other sources, and so they need to make sure that they are completely removing those sources so that everything that they are releasing for the open source is legally okay to do so, which is, it's important. But yeah, that's probably not a small process, making sure that they painstakingly go through and make sure that they aren't exposing themselves to any sort of legal issues by not completely cleaning those things out first. So I can see why that's going to take a little bit of time to go through. Okay, what else have we got? What comes next? Phase 2 will focus on open sourcing the server sidecar services that support the main server module. This includes systems such as the relay server, facilitates communication between the modules, the mob manager, responsible for AI entity behavior control, map server, generates and serves the images of the map and related services that sit alongside the core game logic. Our current expectation is to release Phase 2 within roughly 6 months of this Phase 1 release. Beyond that, the additional phases will follow as we continue to work toward fully open sourcing BitCraft's codebase. We expect there to be around 3 to 4 phases total. While we do not want to lock ourselves into exact dates too far out, this is an active and ongoing effort. Well, considering that the first phase is happening in like a few days, I mean, they're obviously moving into the phases. But yeah, it's interesting. What you can and cannot do. This will be important. As discussed in our original document, open sourcing BitCraft does not mean there are no restrictions at all. To avoid any confusion, here's a clear summary. You can read and study the code to better understand how the game works, modify and experiment with the code locally, run your own version of server modules for testing or experimentation, use it as a reference for building your own projects, make and sell a game similar to BitCraft with your own IP, art, and themes using our code as a basis. You cannot use BitCraft's art, game content, music, or other protected assets. Use BitCraft's IP or present forks as official. Share information about any discovered exploits in the game with anyone other than us. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Oh, exploits, that makes sense. Operate official, unofficial, private, or any otherwise competing BitCraft servers. And you cannot do anything that violates the open source license. At this time, the game's assets and IP remain protected, and all forms of playable BitCraft servers will continue to be operated by us. Okay, that was one thing that I was wondering about when they go open source. Like, is it suddenly going to be that all these different people are running BitCraft servers or something, and then you're not necessarily playing with your friends or that kind of thing? But I think I understand everything that's been said so far, and it makes sense to me, and it's cool. Let me see on what else they have. Contributions and expectations. We want to be very clear about how we view contributions at this stage. Primary purpose of open sourcing BitCraft right now is to share the code with the community. This is about transparency, learning, and exploration. We are not attempting to crowdsource development of the game, nor are we shifting BitCraft into a community-run open source project. What we do welcome are reports of serious bugs, security issues, or unintended gameplay behaviors that could meaningfully impact the live game. These kinds of findings are extremely valuable to us. In the case of discovery of an exploit, we ask that it be reported privately rather than a public GitHub issue or pull request so that we can fix it promptly without impacting the live game. If people do that, that will be cool because yes, that can be problematic to have someone expose that. You imagine at some point in the future there may be some private modded servers, not in phase 1 at least. Yeah, I would imagine that at some point some people do that, but I hope that a lot of the main player base stays on the official servers and stuff because I really like the community of this game, so I'm hoping that it continues to be like it is, only bigger. Let's see. Adding a quick drop-in edit because I forgot to read the next couple of paragraphs on stream since I got distracted when discussing a point with chat. The next couple paragraphs say, "We are not looking for pull requests focused on refactors, new features, or minor performance improvements. In most cases, any suggested fixes will be reviewed and then implemented internally by our team. This allows us to maintain a stable development process and avoid both accidental disruption and the risk of malicious changes hidden in otherwise helpful-looking contributions. BitCraft will be open-sourced, but it will continue to be developed and directed by our team." Back to the stream discussion. The last section is looking ahead. This is a meaningful milestone for BitCraft and for us as a studio. Very few commercial MMORPGs have ever taken this step, and we are excited to finally put this code into the hands of the community. We believe with this resource, the ability for others to try their hand at making an MMORPG on Spacetime DB will become even more accessible. We are looking forward to seeing what developers learn from it and what you might create from it. Open sourcing BitCraft is part of a broader vision for the game's future, and 2026 is shaping up to be an exciting year with more major announcements still to come. Thank you to everyone who supported BitCraft so far, whether by playing, building, sharing, or simply following along. We will share more details and links when Phase 1 goes live next week. Finch, Alessandro, and the BitCraft team. Okay. So, yeah, that is pretty clear explanation of the parts that they have set up so far and what some of the aspects of what it looks like for it to be open source in the future looks like. So that is pretty cool. It's nice to have this level of detail because it's been this thing that I'm like, every time I introduce the game to people, I'm like, well, it's supposed to be open source when it goes live, and I don't really know what that means. So it's nice to have an explanation of what that does mean that I can share with people.